big stories this morning. I'm just trying to find The Sun because they've mocked up an eviction notice for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. King Charles has told them they need to vacate Frogmore Cottage in Windsor.
Yeah, it's thought that Harry and Meghan were told to remove their belongings from the property days after Harry published his explosive memoir, Spare. Reports suggesting that the house has been offered to Prince Andrew.
Is that fair? Is it the right response to kick them out, or is this cruel punishment revenge by the king? We're joined by the broadcaster, Fahima Mohammed, who says the couple have trashed the royal family and deserve no perks at all. But former royal editor of The Sun, Duncan Larkham, says it's petty to evict them and appears to be revenge for the publication of Harry's book, Spare. Very good to both of you. So, Fahima, you think the king is acting absolutely rightly and properly?
Well, let's look at it in facts. The Frogmore Cottage is actually a royal estate residency, and it's owned by the Crown Estate. Mm-hmm. So it's not really individual possession for anybody. And at the same time, they have stepped down as senior royals, so they don't get the perks as royalty. And I think that King Charles is acting as a normal parent would. So if you are going to act out, you know, there's nothing wrong with a bit of tough love at the same time to sort of, you know, pay for the consequences for certain actions. And I don't see anything wrong in that.
Duncan, Terry agrees with Fahima, says you can't rip up the institution and then expect to live in a house financed by the institution.
That's true, but I think so far, the way that the palace, and including the Queen, when she was still with us, but King Charles, they've behaved in a way which has risen above all the allegations, all the muck, if you like, that Harry and Meghan have thrown in their direction. This represents a change of tact. I mean, this is revenge. This is a petty move. They have plenty of palaces and properties. They don't particularly need this small cottage that was hardly being used until Harry and Meghan were gifted it by the Queen.
If you think it's revenge, what specifically do you think it is revenge for? Is it what Prince Harry wrote in his memoir about his father? Or is it what he wrote in his memoir about his father's wife, his stepmother, Camilla, the Queen Consort?
Or was it, you know, I mean, there's a lot of things that perhaps you could argue that the royals would feel they could get revenge for, would want to get revenge for, because since leaving Britain, Harry and Meghan have obviously embarked on this policy of trying to lift up the curtain and show some of the more grisly sides of the royal family. But, you know, this is an action, I think, that King Charles has taken as a king rather than as a father, because you don't want to cut off ties with your children. No matter how bad things get, if you love your children, you will still want to keep
Prince
that
Charles, it wouldn't have happened if the Queen had still been with us.
Well, I think that the Prince Charles and King Charles are actually showing themselves to be two very different people, very different characters, yeah.
I don't think it's cutting ties. I really don't think it's revenge. I think that's really strong. We have family feuds, and at the same time, they're probably still going to be invited, and they still can make their own way to live wherever they need and afford whatever security they require. I really do think that at the same time, when you are going against family, you are, you know, disloyal, you're saying certain things, it's a normal reaction for family feuds to not have the perks, to not actually, you know, get and gain certain things that you would normally. And they have stepped down as royalty.
Duncan, I wonder whether it's a purely practical decision. I mean, the tone that the king has used up until now has been conciliatory and compassionate and warm and inclusive. There hasn't been any hint of revenge or retaliation. So I just wonder, you know, there are a lot of families right now who might think, if you've got a spare 5-bedroom house in the grounds of your home, and your child and his wife have said they're going to spend 99% of their time out of the country, it is a purely practical decision to offer that home to somebody else.
Well, yeah, maybe it was a practical decision, but it still opens the door to the sheer risk that you're gifting Harry and Meghan the high moral ground. Their sort of structure, their argument is that the palace have treated them badly, the king has treated them badly, etc., etc. This just plays into their hands. Their victim card, this has given them a chance.
Fahima, lots of people getting in touch. Paul says it's a disgusting decision by the king. Harry and Meghan paid millions to have the cottage renovated. We understand it's £2.4 million they paid out of their own money. Hopefully they'll get some of that money back. Clive says, how can our king be so vindictive to do this to his own son, Lillian? It's an overreaction by the king. He'll come to regret it.
I honestly will stick by the fact that as a parent, sometimes if, children are acting out, being spoilt, saying certain things against you, then you've got to show them in a particular way that, these are the consequences for your actions. You have a family that has given you privilege and you have a lot of things.
What about the money that they've spent renovating that cottage? I mean,
well, that was on them. That was on them at the same time.
But would they spend it on the understanding that actually this is going to be a home for them? They've invested money in the cottage to improve the standard of the cottage or whatever. I'm sure they've raised the value of the cottage.
Well, I'm sure they've gained enough money for the books that they've written, the documentaries that they've made, and a lot of the things that they've said. So I don't think it's a problem for them, really, at the end of the day.
You're not playing a violin for them.
Exactly.
It's an emotional place for them. The engagement photos were taken in the grounds of Frogmore Cottage. The larger, grander house on the estate, and their evening wedding reception was also held there. And their daughter, Lilibet's first birthday party reportedly held there in 2022 when the Sussexes returned for the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee weekend. So there's a lot of emotional resonance. That now looks like it might shift to Prince Andrew, Duncan. I mean, that's it. People might support Harry and Meghan not being there. I'm not sure that... And I think our poll, we've put it on a Twitter poll, is it fair Harry and Meghan are being kicked out of Frogmore Cottage? 80% say yes, it's fair. I'm not sure they would agree with Prince Andrew moving in their wake.
No, I mean, that's the other question. I mean, is this a move, actually, a strategic move, if you like, by King Charles to say, right, we need to get Prince Andrew out of Royal Lodge where he has been living because of the cost, £250,000 plus a year to the taxpayer for... So is this a chance of shifting Harry out and bringing Prince Andrew in? How will that go down? I mean, it seems like potentially a thorny sort of path to make this decision, I think.
Duncan, thank you very much indeed. Fahima, good to speak to you both this morning. Thank you for voting in the poll to those viewers
80%, that's pretty emphatic, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Lots of you saying, essentially, they don't live in the UK. They don't need a property in the UK. I don't see a problem with them being told that they have to move their things out.
I don't think it's an act of revenge by the king. I just don't think that that's how the king operates. I genuinely think it is... it's a practical... decision.
But is the argument, as Duncan was saying, he didn't necessarily need to do it? Like, there's plenty of properties within the royal sort of property portfolio. Does he need to actually shift that to somebody else and make a point of allowing them to say, we have been forced evicted?
Well, we don't know the state of his finances. Maybe he does want to Airbnb it